We want to set the stage for what we're going to see in our examples from the plot that we did this year in Mitchell, South Dakota. We used 150 acres of farm ground to perform a variety of tests on to crop care all the way to harvest. We took a look at how different configurations and options that are available for each production step can have on your operation.
So we split up this corner of the plot to showcase different types of knife rolls on our corn heads. And now we've got 3 different types of knife rolls that we used. We used an opposed, the new chopping stock roll, along with an intermeshing stock roll, then also compared them with Stockmaster turned on and Stockmaster turned off. Now these tests were replicated across 3 different tillage applications. Now to get a proper look at this, we want to first take a look at how the field looked before we ran any tillage across it. So first, looking at the opposed Stockmaster off, right down the center you can kind of see the blossom top. Just to the right, you can see where our Stockmaster on trial was for the same stock rolls. So here we have our chopping stock rolls with Stockmaster turned off. You can see them just to the right there where the Stockmaster was also turned on to a little sharper point. But the point of these chopping stock rolls being doing all of our stock processing without having to have the lawnmower style blades running underneath.
So let's take a look at our first tool. Here we're looking at the 2660 vertical tillage tool. This is going to essentially be our Swiss Army knife of tillage tools. Its main goal is to help size chop residue and then also help prepare a level seed bed. So we could use it as a fall tool to break up residue in stalks, and then also as a spring prep tool to air out the soil and level the seed bed off and get it ready for planting. Here we have the Commander Pro serrated blade, 22 inches in diameter, 1.5 inch concavity. The reason for the 1.5 inch concavity is so when we hit obstructions, rocks, on the face of this serrated edge here, we direct all the energy back into the shaft directly over the top of the shaft to the center of the blade to reduce blade cracking and breaking. Here we have our blade angle hydraulic adjust to go from 0 to 12 degrees so we can adjust our working hydraulic angle to better size residue, turn soil, and mix soil, leave the soil how we want it to for each application for fall or spring. These blades are mounted at a 7¼ inch spacing, so that's going to allow us good residue flow. There's slight concavity to them too to help make that room so we can pass that residue on and through the tool. You'll also notice that the way that blade's shaped is the edge of the blade is sitting over the center of where that blade mounts on the spool. So if we do hit obstructions, that's going to send that shock load right to the center of the blade versus putting to crack and fatigue that blade and have more tendency to break a blade at that point. So here on this 2660 VT, we have the scraper mounted directly behind the shaft and the blades to keep these blades clean of dirt, debris at all times. This blade with a self-sharpening edge is what makes it such a great blade. Here we have the solenoid valve here, so if our tree set controller were to fail or we were to lose the ability to set or adjust our machine from the cab using true set, we have the ability to screw in these applications on this disc to go from true set mode to manual mode right in the field and keep the machine moving. These discs are mounted on a C-shank cushion gang, which is going to allow us to maintain a leveler depth across the working width of those disc blades, as well as help protect the disc from shock loads from obstructions, rocks, and other obstacles we might encounter in the field. So here we have our outside hydraulic stabilizer wheel. We also have the option of installing an additional stabilizer wheel for sandier soils to help maintain the machine's levelness. We have the option of going with hydraulic stabilizer wheels and also active stabilizer wheels, which will actively change with the terrain of the ground. We have the radial flotation tire option on this machine. For the size and weight of this machine, with the radial tires that are on here are going to As we look at the rear of this machine at the Pro Finish leveling system, we've got a reverse knife edge basket in the lead, followed by either a round bar rolling basket or a flat bar rolling basket. The reason we would look at one versus the other, the round bar is going to do a little better in rocky soils. It's going to hold up better. The flat bar works good in sandier, lighter soils where we're not so worried about bending up the basket if we get into rocks or anything like that. Basically what we're looking at as far as the baskets here and why we have this one in the lead, basically the rumbler here, the crumbler behind it, this reverse knife edge basket's going to be slapping the ground and basically kind of making a shock underneath there to kind of level the subsurface below it. And then our rear basket's going to be the finishing attachment, which is going to level off the top, break up any clods, and kind of smooth everything out. With the Pro Finish leveling system, we also have the ability to change our rolling so we can lock up the rear basket with these stops, so if we want to still keep running with one, or if it gets worse than that, we can also lift both of them hydraulically and lock them up in the up position and continue to run. In summary, the versatility of this tool is what really sells it. Being able to possibly replace one or two implements on your operation, do both spring and fall work, and have the adjustable.
Here we have the TruSet for the 2660. Disc depth, basket pressure, and our fore and aft. Set 4 presets with TruSet. Prescription map for each one of our blade angle, our pressure for our rolling basket. So prescription rate really is what sets John Deere apart from the rest of our competitive vertical tillage units.
There's a lot of different options with the 2660 VT, which is what makes it so unique in the marketplace, especially compared to our competitors. This machine runs about 8 to 10 miles an hour usually. And that gang angle, like you've seen in the video, we can adjust that either on the fly while we're parked. We can even do it with variable rate prescriptions as well, which again is something really unique to the field that you're in.
Yep. So just like we talked about with the 2680H high-speed disc, this tool also in the fall is going to be ran about around 6 to 8 miles an hour and 10 miles an hour in the spring. So we're going to get that speed, we're going to get that productivity. To have a little bit more horsepower, we're going to have 10 to 14 horsepower back in productivity.
The reason for the horsepower differences, right, it's because that all the time, it's not going to take near as much horsepower, especially with those Commander blades. Like you threw it into the soil there and it just slices and dices, and the design of it automatically sharpening as we put more wear life on it is really unique with the way those blades are designed. So we talk about different widths and options available, Matt. What are some of the widths? How small and how big can we get this tool?
So we can get this tool 20 foot 6 inches in 3 section to 33 foot 10 inch 3 section, and then 43 foot 6 inch and 49 foot 6 inch in a 5 section frame. So with the 3 section frame, it takes 5 remotes and a case drain, and then 5 sections only takes 5 remotes and no case drain, because our wings will interlock together and use that weight to hold that machine in the ground. TruSet gives us the ability also to have 4 section control, so we can write a prescription map for 4 sections of that machine and have that machine doing various different things throughout the field, like we talked about with TruSet in the video.
Yep, so with section control, for instance, if I'm coming up to a waterway or the edge of a field, what is section control going to do for me in those conditions?
So you come up to a waterway, that machine is going to give the ability to lift itself up, pass over that interior boundary, and then go back down, and then continue on working. The 2730 combination ripper will also do the exact same thing when TruSet is in place on the machine.
Absolutely. A lot of different options, a lot of different configurations, but now we're into an era where we really have smart tillage, and we're able to farm by the foot, and some of these other buzzwords. The 2660 VT really is a new type of tool using technology that's been around, but using it in a new way, which is really exciting. So when we take a look at the passes that this tool makes, we can take and ground truth it. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the passes we made out in our test plot. All right, looking at the 2660 VT out in the field here, we're looking at the opposed stock rolls first with Stockmaster turned off. Now all these examples again, just like we talked yesterday, the Stockmaster is going to be off for all these comparisons just to get a like-for-like comparison of how the stock rolls are going to process. On top of that, looking at how the tillage is going to work in relation to those stock rolls. And in all these cases, we did not have stock stompers either. So in terms of the top or the crown root and the root ball, none of that was impacted by any stock stomper in this case.
Yeah, if you had stompers and it laid the stock flat, obviously exposed more of the stock to a knife edge or a disc blade or something like that, it would have probably sized maybe a little bit more even.
Yep, absolutely. So our first example, looking at the opposed stock roll, Stockmaster off. When we first look down at the ground here, we're going to see a little bit longer residue than we saw in some of our cases yesterday. The initial pass with the 2660 VT that we saw out at the tillage plot in comparison to the 2680H didn't look like it did as much initially, which is going to be true for any vertical tillage tool.
Right.
That we're kind of slicing and dicing, but we're not turning soil over, not covering it like a traditional concave blade would. What we've really found interesting is, as we looked over time, the residue breakdown in this 2660 VT area was exponentially greater than basically any other spot in our plots. If we jump ahead and look at our pictures from the 25th of November, we saw about a 30.5 or 30.6% surface organic matter. Now we're talking surface organic matter, not a true composition of the top 2 or 4 inches of soil. So we kind of chose a spot that represented the whole area out in this section of the field.
It wasn't worked twice, right?
It was not worked twice.
This was kind of in the middle of the plot, so even though we went around the outside to kind of border that area, it wasn't an area that was worked twice.
Yep, exactly. So we want to get a real accurate representation of what the rest of the field would look like if the whole field was done in conditions just like this. Now if we kind of change this and look at our chopping stock rolls, a new option for John Deere this past year, the initial reaction looking at this is that there's a lot more surface processing happening.
Right.
So because we're chewing those stalks up as they come through the head, instead of using the Stockmaster chopping knives underneath that lawnmower style, we're doing that action right at the stock roll, snapping, gripping and ripping it apart, getting the microbe and moisture activity into that stalk and into the different pieces to help break them down faster. What we see with the chopping stock rolls, especially we look at the ground, you're going to see some longer pieces, some shorter pieces. About half of the pieces of stalk that come through the chopping stock rolls are going to be 6 to 12 inches,
Right.
and the other half are going to be 3 to 6 inches primarily. So we're going to see a lot of residue of that size. And when we look forward again to November 25th, you still see some of those longer pieces on the ground, but really similar to slightly less organic matter on the surface, 32.65%.
As we take a look at how the plot has progressed over time, you'll see it in the time-lapse cameras as well. It was really surprising to all of us that have been keeping an eye on the plot, the amount of residue breakdown that actually happened out there. The other thing to call in mind is we didn't go full on 12 degrees with the VT tool. Chances are you're going to go 12 degrees, right? And you're going to go aggressive, you're probably going to go deep, you want to bury some residue so that you can warm up the soil in the spring and be ready to make that seed bed. So in this situation, we kind of did middle of the road. So just want to make sure everybody's aware of that as well. Is if we go full on 12 degrees, we are going to get a little bit more incorporation, especially when you're not dealing with 300 PSI type ground like we were here in the plot this fall.
Yep, absolutely. And the last thing I kind of want to point out just from these short set of pictures is the levelness of the bed after this tool went by. That Pro Finish dual rolling basket system left a really super level bed that if you're using it in the spring, you could plant behind it really easily. And in the fall, in this case, the field cultivator, or if we run the 2660 again in the spring, is going to have a lot easier job really preparing that for the planter or the air seeder to come by.
That's right. If you're looking to make a big impact on soil compaction while mixing and sizing residue at the same time, well, the next two we're going to be taking a look at really did that in our plot. And really any type of stock roll that we threw at it, it just rolled right through it, and it sized it, it buried it, it left a nice even finish. And the 2730 combination disc gripper provides customers a really durable yet flexible primary tillage tool. When you talk about widths, we talk about the size of the frame and the durability on this tool. It really excites me what John Deere's done with the 2730. You tie this with John Deere's TrueSet controller, and we start wrapping in technology like we talked about before. You now have the ultimate control over changing conditions in the field. So let's take a listen here as Justin Myrie and Matt Hubner explain a little bit more about the 2730 combination disc ripper.
Okay, today we're looking at the 2730 combination ripper. Basically what this tool is supposed to accomplish here for us is it's going to be able to help us manage heavy residue loads as well as mitigate compaction layers, and then ultimately smooth that out and leave a good smooth field finish for our subsequent passes through the field. So the first section of our tool is going to be the disc gang up front. It features 26-inch disc blades, 18 inches apart. This is going to allow us good residue flow through the tool and to help get that mixing process started. If you notice, they're also on individual C-shanks, so that's going to allow a little bit of flex between them to go over obstacles, and it's going to also allow for that good residue flow. There are also stops on the back of these to prevent them from going too far up and breaking the shank. The whole gang frame itself is also hydraulically adjustable, so we've got the ability to adjust the disc depth independently of where our ripper depth is. So as we change ripper depth, we can get the disc raised up or lowered down to still manage residue. Machine's going to be the ripper shanks, so this is where we're going to be minimizing compaction or taking care of that compaction layer. So our shanks are mounted 24 inches apart from each other to still allow for good residue flow through this tool, and they also have the ability to go up to 16 inches deep, so if we've got deep compaction we need to get out, we can. We also offer different widths of ripper points and different styles of ripper points depending on the depth you're going and what you're trying to do on the subsurface there. Well, too, depending on how much residue or how much soil you want to turn. So the next zone we're looking at on this tool is going to be the closing disc system, and basically the purpose of this is to help level off that soil profile behind the ripper shanks and kind of smooth it out before our finishing attachment gets to it. This is also independently depth adjustable, so as we raise or lower our ripper shank depth, we'll be able to adjust this upwards to still create the finish that we want. Okay, the last zone we're going to look at on this tool is the finishing attachment. Here we've got a knife edge basket, and its purpose is to break up clods and also mix the soil a little bit more to leave a more level finish on that soil profile. We have options to add basket scrapers to this rolling basket so we can help minimize plugging in tough soil conditions. Things get a little bit less than ideal condition-wise. This tool also features large radial tires to carry the weight of the tool, as well as walking tandems to provide a smoother ride for it out in the field over rough conditions. We can also equip these wheels with wheel covers to prevent mud from balling up inside them tires. Sometimes in challenging conditions we fill it up with mud. It gets to be a pain to have to dig that out, so these covers are a real simple solution to keep that from happening.
The laser 2 points, the wings are positioned higher, so when running in shallower conditions, the wings will actually lift soil and cause more of a berming than when you're trying to work ground shallower with the laser classics. Then when you have the classics and you're only running that 6 to 8 inches, you've got those wings lower, and it doesn't burn because the wings are positioned towards the middle to bottom of the point to do more of your subsoil fracturing for your compaction layer.
Now, as we look at kind of maximizing this machine, we've got a lot of different widths available for different operations. So what are some of those sizes?
Right. So we've got 7 shank, 14 foot. We've got 9 shank, 18 foot, 11 shank, 22 foot, and 13 shank, 26 foot. So we've got a fairly wide variety of sizes that are available with the 2730 combination ripper.
Absolutely. And the one thing we can't stress the importance of enough is proper ballasting on our tractors, especially depending on the conditions you see in your areas. It's really going to make a big difference in how this tool specifically performs, even compared to the other two.
At the C&B Support Center, we offer many times, due to the differences in model and years of machines and equipment, it can be challenging to connect the dots with any technology. Our custom wiring room was designed to do this no matter if it is related to product or customized needs. For more information, contact us at our local stores or at deereequipment.com.
So this tool is equipped with TrueSet depth control on there. So what this is allowing us to do is to control the different portions of that tillage tool separately from the cab without having to get out and manually make adjustments out on the ground there. So basically what we're looking across on the top here is where each of those units are. So essentially everything we've got's up out of the ground right now, so that's why we've got all them negatives. But we can see our set points here where our disc would be running about 5 inches deep. We'd be running our ripper points at 9 inches deep, our closing basket 2 inches deep, and we'd be running about 600 pounds of pressure down on our rear baskets. So we've got the ability on here too to disable the basket and raise it out in challenging conditions too if we don't want to be putting that down. And then we've also got the ability to add presets in here. And so what this is going to allow us to do is set different predefined presets for different soil conditions. So you know, if you've got a sandier spot in a field that you don't want to be going as deep and mixing as much versus a heavier part where you want to bury a little more residue or break a lower compaction layer, we can do that. So those can be saved with their own name on them basically. So we can make them and name them whatever we want, so our operators are going to understand them. And then this basically allows you to put somebody in here that instead of having to get an operator out all the time to making adjustments as they're going or getting across the field, we can just have them hit a button on the screen and keep moving.
So we talk about data on the farm. You can't manage what you can't measure at the end of the day. And when it comes to tillage, you also can't get much done if you're constantly in and out of the cab, throwing in cylinder stop blocks, right? Just because things are changing. It's normally a set it and forget it type activity that it's been in the past. And so John Deere TrueSet really allows the operator to make changes on the fly or through preset conditions or through map-based prescriptions, which really haven't been there before. And so that's something that's really exciting. When those changes are made, it documents them back onto the GreenStar display. And so we can pull it off with a USB stick, or if you're hooked up with JD Link Connect, it'll stream that data every 30 seconds back to the John Deere Operations Center. And so then you have another layer of information that you can actually make decisions off of. So did the basket pressure make a difference on yield? We can compare those things. Did the depth I run tillage make a difference on yield? And if you get into map-based prescription tillage, or even highlighting the areas that are highly erodible that you want the tillage tool to go up and over, the possibilities are really endless. And I know in working with some growers that becomes a pain point because they say to their operator, I want you to leave that spot over there where the water runs, okay? One operator leaves about 6 inches on each side of where the crevice is, and the next guy leaves about 6 feet on each side, or maybe 60 feet on each side. It gets a little bit too wide. So this allows you to really set all of that ahead of time, so it's part of when the customer goes to the field and your operators are out there working, and then look at all that information back and how it affected yield, and then you can make adjustments from there.
Absolutely. Now, if the words technology and tillage make you a little bit nervous, to view the display the way the operator is seeing it, along with phone support, we really want to make sure that you can leverage the technology you've invested in to really maximize the benefit back for your operation. Because just like Jeff said, there is a lot of soil health that plays into technology and tillage, and now that our tillage tools are getting smarter, we want to make sure that you're confident to use those tools in the best way possible as well. All right, let's take a look at some of the photos after our initial passes with the 2730 combination ripper. First thing we're going to look at again is the opposed stock roll, just like we did with the 2660 VT. Going to be very consistent with what you'd see with the 2730 in most